I'm the CEO and founder of OTOY, which is a co-producer of the Roddenberry Archive with Roddenberry Entertainment and the Roddenberry Estate.
Right. And how long has OTOY been around now?
Oh God, well, I started the company in my mom's attic in 2002. We were incorporated as a company in 2009, so a couple of decades at this point, going strong. Star Trek's been a huge part of my life. Roddenberry has been my best friend for 40 years.
Really?
Since we were, kids. And the Roddenberry Archive started about 20 years ago. Jeff, who was one of the artists, was here, created a QS enterprise, and I remember Rod and I pitched it to CBS Digital in 2002, so that was 23 years ago. That's how long this stuff's going. The archive itself, though, we announced it at Star Trek Las Vegas in 21 on Gene's Centennial. So we're now, entering year 5 of doing this work and making it all digital, and obviously there's a lot of physical props as well. Some of which have been created for some of the content and pieces we've done in the last few years.
Did your love for Star Trek precede your friendship with Rod?
Yes. So Star Trek: The Motion Picture is my favorite movie. I grew up as born in France. I grew up in France, and Star Trek: The Motion Picture is my introduction to Star Trek before the TV series. I saw the TV series later. And I saw it in French, and then I saw Star Trek 2 in France. Then my parents moved to LA after Star Trek 2 came out. And when I first met Ryan, I had no idea who his dad was. None. But then somebody whispered in my ear, I was like, his dad created Star Trek. I'm like, what? And immediately I was like, you get everything from your dad's office to give it to me. We were 12 years old, and he did. I had the Phasa, whatever that whole Starship simulator, anything, the blueprints of the Enterprise. Rod was like, my dad doesn't need this. I'll give it to you. And then I got to know Gene a little bit for a few years before he passed. I got to know Majel really well, and Majel was part of the archive. Her voice, before she died, Rod and her recorded her voice, every possible syllable, and we now have the ability to sort of use that for the narration. So when you see text in the digital archive, it's her voice that's from that recording from 2008. And Gene's spirit is very much in the archive as well. We're very obviously focused on all 60 years of Star Trek, the newest stuff, Discovery and Strange New Worlds, and now the Starfleet Academy, which is just coming out. But also going back to the Cage, going back to before the Cage, which is Star Trek is Gene's script from 1964 with April and Colt and Number One, and it's not even Pike or Kirk. So every era of Star Trek, the stuff that was never produced, like Phase 2, we just did a documentary on that on Monday. And of course, you could go to the Phase 2 bridge. We built almost everything that was in the blueprints digitally. So there's so much. I can talk about it nonstop for hours. But
you even have a VR version.
We have a VR version. So the main platform, besides the web where the Roddenberry Archive could be experienced, is on the Apple Vision Pro. Apple was we were like a launch partner for the Vision Pro, and Paramount gave us an official license specifically to bring this to Vision Pro and VR. But the Quest is something that's experimental. It's a PC VR device, and it's something that we're just showing, really almost to fans to gauge opinions, to see whether it's something people would like to see us release. But if we were to release it, probably like a year out. But it is fun. It's probably the first time that people have been able to experience the Roddenberry Archive. You can walk through it. Not quite able to do that on the Vision Pro just yet, but on the Quest, we're able to.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Right. So, a lot of Star Trek fans identify as LGBTQ. Following the infinite diversity, infinite combinations IDIC, and seeing them represented in Star Trek means a lot.
Of course.
What can you tell me about how OTOY and Roddenberry Archives are also representing people who identify as LGBTQ?
Well, I think Culber and Stamets obviously are I remember when Gates, Gates we've had, and she had, there was this slight, I guess lesbian that was a person that was transferred into a different body, and I remember thinking that's as close as Star Trek came in the 90s to touching on this.
A non-binary character that Riker dated or whatever.
And there's more. But they're slight and they're hinted at, and I think that sort of when Discovery came out, and there was an explicit LGBT relationship. That was something really special. So again, celebrating Discovery and highlighting that in the archive is a big part of showing that Star Trek had sort of moved to that era. And I guess in the Berman era, it still was too early, really, to do that. As progressive as Star Trek was, I always felt that was one thing that wasn't really represented until, the last decade, really.
And I know in Discovery...
Of course, that's not true. And then J.J. Films, obviously, Sulu in the Kelvin timeline is gay, and George Takei, I guess. I remember at the time when that came out, he said, well, even though I'm gay, the character, I never felt he was gay.
He objected.
Sulu, so there's a whole thing. But, so there's been... we think about this stuff a lot, you know, and it's certainly part of representing everything, and that's a big part of Star Trek. I think.
There's a lot of blowback against AI, but I've seen that mostly very positive responses to how you used AI.
We don't do generative AI. Like generative AI is like you type something in, you get something created out of all these people saying. I mean, you know, like it's so when people were saying it's not AI, it's like we've been doing digital faces for 20 years. Like we won an Academy Award in 2008 for doing. I mean, there's no AI back then, right? We had to put dots on people's faces, and the big thing is that yes, we use machine learning, so you don't. So Sam Witwer, who plays Kirk, doesn't have to put any dots on his face, right? We still put him in a wig. We still put him, you know, there's still physical prosthetics, but we have a digital mask, you know, sculpted by artists. Just like we see Yor and Arix, who our team built. You know, and in the case of the Nimoys, you know, Susan Bay Nimoy was looking at Larry's test as older Spock, and she's like, it looks just like Leonard. You guys are doing great. I support.
So there was no pushback from Shatner or the Nimoys.
No, on the contrary. I mean, the only pushback was that we had to convince them that this was even worth doing, and so they saw the storyboards and everything, and it was a SAG production, so everything. You know, there was a big actor strike, and a lot of it was over AI. And what happened was that they at least came to some sort of concordance where you could have you know, digital replica agreements through SAG, which covered the kinds of stuff we're doing, where you have another actor portraying the likeness of an actor, both living or who's passed, like in Leonard's case. And so we were able to use that structure within SAG, as Unification was a SAG production, to make this happen. So 4 people ended up getting paid. You know, Bill Shatner, Sam Witwer, who played Kirk, and the Nimoy estate, and Larry, who played Spock. The piece is pretty magical. We're really happy with how it turned out and how people interpret it. So I feel like we did the right thing there.
Can you tell me a little bit about what Shatner's physical participation was? What did he actually do?
Well, he almost was on set. But other than that, no, he was basically a producer on it. He looked at the storyboards, he gave his feedback, he made the decision to use his voice. And it was much more during the pre-production phase where we were doing tests to figure out whether we were going to have him physically there or not. That he did this. We also he did hours of interviews with us where I said, I'm going to scan you for this project we're doing for next year if you like the idea. And I did. And so we have 3D scans of him, and you can see him in all his interviews, right? In the Enterprise bridge. And we use that to basically model a 3D mask for Sam.
Seeing the chair, seeing the uniform, seeing the small detail like the comm wrist, this must be incredible for you to have.
Yeah, so we had the original. These, by the way, are also original. The toy. The thing is, this one is the original for Kirk that we do have is really fragile, so we have it in storage. We recreated it for Sam, and you can see this by the way, Sam and Larry as Kirk and Spock.
Wow, that's not Shatner in any way.
No, and Dave Blass from who's
Dave Blass is the best. Yeah,
amazing. Created this chair, and it's, as far as we can tell, it's pretty much identical to the original. So when possible, we get the originals, which we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 TMP original costumes there. We have 2 more in storage, and we just make sure if we do a replica that it's identical and that it can be, it's not going to. It can last sort of through the filming of it. And we did do a couple of scenes where we're playing with montages where Kirk and Spock, we have TOS Kirk and Spock, we had Larry and Sam do a test that, TMP, and it was almost like during the memory wall scene, you'd almost see the different eras.
Right.
We ended up just doing the 3, but there was that sort of idea.
And right behind you there's Unification with Robin Curtis and Spock's and Robin's son, right?
Son.
Yeah.
And those are the actual uniforms they wore for the Unification.
I see them.
Yeah. And these are all screen worn for Unification and for.
And you got this from, of course, an episode of Discovery.
Discovery, that's right.
Right.
So the reason why he's in there, it was my idea to put him in, was because, according to the canon, he's the only person or entity to go from the Kelvin timeline to the Prime timeline and cross over. So basically, for him to be able to bridge Kirk, whether it's literal or figurative or spiritual, the idea was that he would be sort of, the Charon or whatever, and getting him into the underworld.
And passing on the comm badge.
Yeah, exactly. And the comm badge came from the Kelvin timeline, where that's the comm badge there, which Spock brought with him. Right, so the idea was that Spock had it in the Kelvin timeline, and Europe brought it back to Kirk. And it's ever seen the movie Somewhere in Time?
Yes, my favorite movie.
My favorite movie too. So this was almost so that all the scenes at Huntington. My original plan was Mackinac Island, right? Where the movie where it was filmed.
Sure,
And it was,
Grand Hotel.
And it was, when we were filming in February, it was too cold, and then it would have been too expensive, so we ended up filming it at Huntington. But if you look at the CG part of the scene, it's very much like based on Mackinac Island, where the Grand Hotel is.
Well, the Huntington is also beautiful.
Huntington's beautiful.
Times, sure.
And I think that we wanted people to know, like, this is a grounded piece. Like, we filmed it on location with real extras and everything. And the idea is that if you remember Chris Reeve, the penny in that scene, right, is what brings him back to the present.
Right.
So that was sort of the impetus.
That's where you got the idea for that.
That's where I got the idea for First Combat.
Wow, what a great connection.
Yeah.
You also had someone named Crusher in that crowd.
I'm not going to talk about that.
You don't want to talk about it.
That's a secret that between me and someone else that inspired that character, and I'm going to leave it that way until I can talk about it.
But it wasn't Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton was not
involved.
Not involved, no.
Got it. I'd just like to know that I want to at least be able to ask anything that you want to talk to me about.
We are very much in favor of cinema and actors being, and traditional, filmmaking. And as much as we are embracing new technology to tell beautiful stories that are in the Star Trek universe, like, we want to make sure that, the LA and filming in LA and all those things continue to be a thing. Like, we want the film industry in LA to be strong. So that's a big part of, our passion besides just Star Trek.